Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast, episode 295. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
Hey, man, I just want you to know you are lucky to be here this week. You are. I don't know if you'd heard, but I've been in discussions with the Seahawks to trade you and a conditional podcaster to be named later for Russell Wilson. And we've been deep in those discussions, and it's gone places. So you're lucky to be here because you're on the trading block for Russell Wilson. Yeah.
If you can make that trade, you should do it.
I know. That's why I'm in discussions.
Yeah, it seems to be that a lot of those kinds of rumors are going around. This is the time of year for these types of stories because, Adam, one of our listeners pointed out that we recently passed the ever-important Seahawkquinox, the median point between the last Seahawks game of the season and the first game coming up of the 2020 season, September 13th. So this is the prime time for nonsense rumors, and I'm glad that I'm at least involved in one of them.
Well, I mean, you're an asset, and teams are interested, but I wonder if the Seahawkquinox is a moving target, considering we don't know if the season's going to happen, when the season's going to happen. I mean, what if the season is pushed back like another 3 to 4 months than normal? Then we have an extra 3 to 4 months of dumbasses like Mike Florio and Chris Sims floating crap out like we've had to endure the last couple weeks, and then some, right? I don't want to deal with that.
Well, maybe instead of going back to 2018 rumors, we could start going back to 2016 and 2015, and we could revisit the idea that there were so many other teams that wanted to take Russell Wilson that didn't take Russell Wilson. So, we can go back to rumors like way in the back. You just have to suddenly remember them and throw them out at some podcast, and then it can get all stirred up once again.
Absolutely. I mean, what could go wrong with that plan? We've already had the Eagles stories, right, with Howie Roseman when they drafted Jalen Hurts and just talking about how, we were just about to draft Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson. I mean, how many... It's hilarious. So you get the Eagles rumors about, Howie Roseman talking about how they were so close to just drafting him and they just got aced out and they'd never let it happen again, right? So you get to listen to all that. Then you get Florio and Sims coming out and they're like, oh, well, the Seahawks were going to trade Russell Wilson to the Browns for a bag of chips.
They almost did it.
It was so close, which is idiotic. And then you get the next round of them, which is, well, it all sets up for Russell Wilson to be traded in the future. Like, that's the next ones we get to deal with, that's so much fun, too.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I wasn't planning on leading the show with this, but this is clearly where we're going.
It had to. It pissed me off so bad, man.
You've been stewing on this for almost a week now, and it's funny how, it started out with Sims on the Overtime podcast. I actually clipped it, Adam. Because I wanted to hear, I like to go back and just hear how all these things start from the very beginning, and how this was really, Chris Sims was blowing this off as a story before it turned into the story that it became. And let me start this clip off by saying I left on the little bit that went into this because this started from a discussion between Chris Sims and Mike Florio on the most untradeable players in the NFL. And
wait, when you say untradeable, does that mean that there's no way on God's green earth a team would trade that player?
I do believe that fits the dictionary definition of untradeable.
So when they're discussing this, that's what they're talking about.
And it makes all the sense in the world because I even left on the tail end of the discussion of Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes, when they did this draft of untradeable players, Mahomes was the first round pick.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes is going to be a chief for life. Period. Now, look, maybe some point later in his career, if his skills start to diminish, that's a different conversation. For now.
And even in that, I was just going to let it keep going, but listen to Florio there. He says he's going to be a chief for life, period, unless his skills diminish to the point that they end up wanting to trade him in the future. So chief for life, period, okay. And then caveat, he may not be a chief for life, period.
Yeah, chief for life until he's maybe not.
Patrick Mahomes is going to be a chief for life, period. Now, look, maybe some point later in his career, if his skills start to diminish, that's a different conversation. For now, no way, no how. All right, I'll go Russell Wilson. The Seahawks have built their team around Russell Wilson. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. They've made the big financial commitment to him. I think Russell Wilson is untradeable by the Seahawks. No way, no how do they part ways with Russell Wilson after all they've invested in him. Do you agree with that?
Agreed. Yeah, I do. I do agree with that. One, like you said, they've invested in. Two, they've handed over kind of the keys of the organization and made it about the offense and Russell Wilson. That's what's different about this Seahawks team as compared to the teams that were winning the Super Bowl. So you're right. Between what they've invested in him and then what they've invested in the team to make sure he can carry the team that way too, I don't think he could ever be traded either. Now, listen, I'll say this, and I think I've told you this before. I had heard a rumor from some people that I trusted a few years ago that, Seattle called Cleveland when they had the number 1 pick. And there was this rumor going around the NFL that they offered Russell Wilson to the Browns for the number 1 pick the year they drafted Baker Mayfield. I never followed up, but I just know I had people tell me that was something people were hearing. But now we're 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, and I think the Seahawks have totally flipped the organization over to where it is all about Russell Wilson. And, yeah, he's more untradeable now, and I think he was even then. I don't know how serious those discussions were, but I agree with you there. Long story short.
I just heard this rumor, Adam. It was involving one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL and involving the number 1 pick overall. And I thought so much of that possible rumor that I heard from people who I trusted that I didn't even follow up on it. It just wasn't that important of a story to me to even follow up on. But I remember that story so clearly.
Yeah, you remember that story so clearly. And like you said, star quarterback and the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And if there was any shred of truth to that, that would have been the biggest story of that offseason. By far. Media types, especially like Florio and Sims never used to be this way. I mean, he's doing it because he's now part of a bigger organization and NBC and all that stuff, right? They can't help but blow this crap out of proportion. And he even, 2 years later, he pulls it out of his back pocket to, kind of sensationalize the whole thing. And here's the thing. What's really handy is Brandon, have a transcript that I'm willing to do a dramatic reading of between the phone call between John Schneider and the Browns general manager. Wasn't it Dorsey at that time?
It would have been Dorsey at the time, yep.
Okay.
Because that's the thing. It's between John Schneider and John Dorsey. They work together in Green Bay. And I like that you've done the work on this because now you've done some investigative reporting here to go in and actually dig up the transcript.
Well, I got this from sources that I trust. So that's
I think
he
said sources he used to trust.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what that was.
I still trust them because they're me.
Okay.
So, that's it. So here's how the phone call went, Brandon.
Okay.
So, bring. Hey, Dorsey, this is Schneider. Oh, hey, John. Hey, other John. I was just wondering, what would you trade the first pick of the draft for? Is there anything that, kind of interests you on our team that maybe that we could, trade up and get that number 1 pick? Schneider, I think it might be Russell Wilson. You know what, Dorsey? Catfish off. Click.
And you know what? That actually makes some sense because John Schneider, Pete Carroll was wanting Saquon Barkley and getting it with the first overall pick. That would have that could have been the way that the conversation went.
Well, you hear John and Pete talk all the time about how they are in every single deal. And if that's the case, then they're making the phone calls for every pick that they think that they could possibly trade up for. Mm-hmm. And the Browns are idiotic. That might be an organization that might trade the first pick in the draft for something other than Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Because pretty much anything else you would have been like, okay.
Yeah. Well, Dorsey was pretty new, so maybe he hadn't been infected by the Browns bug yet.
The dysfunction yet?
Yeah, so he didn't give up that pick.
I don't know. But that's how absurd this whole thing is. I mean, the rumor probably started from something like that, where Schneider just made a call. Mm-hmm. Hey, what would it take to get the number 1 pick? And the other GM being like, Russ? Nope. And that was it.
Yeah, and Dorsey told one of the people that he worked with that, John called me about the number 1 pick. I told him it would take Russell Wilson.
right. And they had a good laugh and they took a shot, Yeah. It's like a bar story, It's just, and these are the things that people run with. And then it gets even better from there because you get all these side stories that come off of it.
Well, that was the thing with this. I don't even necessarily blame Sims, although this is where it started, was from his story. But they didn't make a post on Pro Football Talk based on the podcast that about this rumor that came out 2 years ago. No, it was all of the side stuff that, we have a Field Goals chat with the writers and editors of Field Goals. And one of the guys saw the initial story that came out and they said, geez, is this anything worth posting up on Field Goals? I said, no, this is just a discussion about some crazy rumor that Sims heard a while back. And here's the link to the part where they discussed it. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's not worth putting up at Field Goals.
No, not even there, right?
Yeah, I mean, and they like to point to articles of rumors that make sense for the Seahawks, and that was just something that didn't even make sense. It was like a clickbait thing.
Yeah, Field Goals is dedicated to everything Seahawks. Am I right?
Right.
Okay, so if that's the case, then you address anything with a shred of relevance,
right?
Because you're looking for anything. That's a
yeah. But you don't point to clickbait
stuff
that comes out of, some random story.
No. And so I'm going to hold my favorite part of the ridiculousness that came out of this story for my do better. And so if you want to hear that, stay tuned for the end of the show, because there was a story that came out after this semi-rumor, pseudo-rumor, I don't know what you would call it, came out. And the amount of ridiculousness behind this article is mind-numbing. So
wow.
Stay tuned for that.
Well, from one story about a Seahawks quarterback to another, some actual news. Geno Smith coming back to the Seahawks.
Oh, right. Well, hey, I'm really excited that we got our third-string quarterback all worked out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great.
Made that happen.
I don't mind having Geno on the team. He seems like a nice enough guy, competent enough. That's everything you need in a backup. I'm sure he didn't cost much. Perfect.
Yeah. I was making plans, though, for how I would use Cam Newton as the Seahawks backup quarterback. But I guess I'll just have to live without that now.
Okay. That was one of those discussions, too, that was insane to me. Like, why on God's green earth would you bring in Cam Newton to be Russell Wilson's backup? Like, what? As a backup quarterback, your number one goal is to be cool with the guys and help the starter prepare.
Yeah.
Is Cam Newton smart enough to help Russell Wilson prepare?
Oh, yeah.
Like more than Russell Wilson can prepare.
Oh.
No. He's not as intellectual as Russell Wilson. He's just not.
That's a pretty high bar, though. Russell Wilson is probably one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But that's what you got to dumb it down because Russell Wilson's smart.
No, I'm just saying, if you're bringing in a quarterback that has the ability to, that's why you have a quarterback coach, an offensive coordinator.
Sure, of course. And that's just one of the things a backup quarterback is supposed to do. And Geno's probably not even that guy, but that's one of the things that you need to be, right? And Cam's not that. The other part is you got to be cool with the guys, right?
Yeah.
And be a good teammate, all that stuff. That is not douchey Cam Newton.
Cam Newton only gets pouty when he's losing. And if
do you think he's going to get happier when he's riding the pine?
If he knew that that's what his role was, I don't think we would see pouty Cam Newton.
Really?
No.
Really?
No.
You say, well, if he knew that what his role was, then he'd be fine with it. Absolutely not. He knows that he could possibly lose when he's the starter and yet is still freaking pouty. Okay? And then you get pouty, crybaby ass Cam Newton wearing his stupid hats in practice, and he'd probably combine him with the short shorts. So that's the only thing that would make that worse.
The ladies would love Cam Newton in the short shorts.
Oh, my God. And then I'd have to put up with his stupid tweets and freaking, whatever that language is that he uses on Twitter.
Yes, we finally got to the real reason you don't want Cam Newton on the team. This is it. This is you saved this for number 3, but really this is number 1 for you.
They're all the real reason. And then on top of all of that, the first time Russ had a clunker of a game, you'd have Florio on NBC Talk being like, well, the Seahawks are looking to bench Russell Wilson to start Cam Newton. And you'd have to pay him too much money. And you don't even know if he's healthy.
Yeah.
I'd take Geno Smith 10 times out of 10 over top stupid Cam Newton
Not
for
me.
my backup.
I would take Cam Newton. If prices were equal, I would take Cam Newton over Geno Smith because Cam Newton, he has some legitimate play value. You could put in Cam Newton on 3rd and short and have him run a QB sneak, have him do some kind of run. 3rd and short has been a problem for the Seahawks over the years, and I think Cam Newton would help solve that.
Yeah, well, you know how else you could solve that? Bring in Marshawn Lynch for the year to be your short yardage guy.
Yeah.
He proved that he was awesome at it last year. That's where he's at now in his career, and he's now good at it. So let's do that. Let's bring in the beast for short yardage and not Cam Newton. How about that?
Or Devontae Freeman or Carlos Hyde.
I have zero interest in Devontae Freeman.
0?
All right, 3%. He's never all that great in Atlanta. I know he had one great year.
Yeah.
And that's cute. But I never looked at him as a top tier back. And you're going to have to pay him at least a decent chunk of change. I'd be more interested in Carlos Hyde as a backup, running back. He at least runs with the style that we're looking for, that physical style. That's not Devontae Freeman.
No, he's more of a catch a pass out of the backfield type of guy. And
right.
Yeah,
and we already have one of those guys in Rashad Penny.
Well, and I think that's the thinking is that if he's not ready to go for week 1 of the season, then you have Freeman as kind of the Rashad Penny insurance.
Okay. The thing is that Rashad Penny, odds are he might miss. I don't think he's going to miss any games. That's just me personally. I know that, people are saying otherwise and blah, 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 but just the way science has been with people recovering from ACL in the medical community and the way they've advanced with the recoveries from ACL injuries, I'd be stunned if he wasn't there week 1. And even if he's not going much past week 4 that he's out. And that does not justify to me spending a decent chunk of change on a guy like Devontae Freeman, who's going to be your 3rd running back on the depth chart, who's going to be more or less expendable after 4 weeks. Who cares?
Yeah, Corbin Smith, he put out that Freeman was looking for $5 million for 1 year and that the Seahawks offered $4 million. And who knows if that was $4 million total with incentives or...
Oh, it has to be with incentives.
It had to be with incentives, right?
Yeah, I'm not into Devontae Freeman. No thanks. I'm really not into anybody Falcon for the most part.
Yeah, even Cam Newton played the Falcons twice a year, and that's just too much.
I think the only 2 Falcons I'd be interested in is Calvin Ridley or Julio.
Oh, there's some guys on defense.
Are there?
Yeah.
Where were they last year?
Injured.
Yeah, not interested.
Are you interested in Josh Gordon coming back into the NFL?
Sure. That's fine. He's a guy that you can't pin any hopes on, right?
No.
Because he is who he is, and that's fine. But he came in, he made a couple of big 3rd downs for us. I enjoyed having him on the team. By all accounts, the team enjoyed having him. I'd be all for it. And a lot of the problems, more recently for him in his past has been marijuana, right?
Yeah, he did get it.
And whoop-de-freaking do.
Yeah, he did get popped for PEDs, though, so I do think that if he gets reinstated, he's probably going to have to serve a PED suspension. Unless, did he go out at the time of the year that they might be able to say he served all those
Or
games?
he served it. Yeah, I think he did.
Because Al Woods got hit for it right around that time, too. Yeah, he might be
Wasn't
fine.
it the same week? Yeah, he might be fine. And look, I'd give him a shot. You bet. Why not?
Well, after he saw that Alden Smith got reinstated, it sounded like he was putting in for reinstatement right after that. So, I mean, if Alden Smith can get reinstated based on his history.
Have you read anything about Alden Smith and his journey to where he's gotten now?
No.
It's worth looking into.
Yeah.
Look at what he has done in the last couple years with Jay Glazer and his institution. I can't remember what it's called, but it pairs up NFL vets with
military.
With military vets. Yeah, and the journey that he's kind of gone on and who he's kind of become. I give people the chance at least, once to, if they've had a really rocky past, to reinvent themselves and become better.
Yeah.
And it seems to be at this point that that's what he's done, and I applaud him for it. So good luck.
Well, going back to some other news, maybe some of the bigger news of this past week. Adam, did I bet you that Quinton Dunbar would beat out Trey Flowers for the week 1 starting job?
Yes.
Because I feel like I thought through that and maybe even said it on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we haven't had any practices, and it's maybe less than a week. Well, maybe about a week since his introductory press conference.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that Trey Flowers doesn't have much to worry about when it comes to Dunbar beating him out for the starting job.
So this is not the way that I figured I'd win this bet, but here we are. And I think the news of Quinton Dunbar allegedly being involved in an armed robbery came out the day after his press conference, right?
Right. The alleged robbery happened the night before the press conference.
Right.
The next morning he had the press conference, and by that evening the news was out that there was a warrant out for his arrest, which, if you watch the press conference, we're going to work through all this, but when I watched the press conference and after I heard and read through the arrest warrant and affidavit, I saw how he acted in that press conference, and I thought, gosh, is this dude a sociopath? Because
oh, really? I didn't watch his presser.
He seems like the coolest dude in the world. And so if he went through all this and then showed up the next morning, this is either on the regular for him, and it just didn't even seem like it was just a normal night out for him the night before. But then we come to hear that his lawyer is coming out, and he's pretty adamant about the fact that maybe this situation happened at this particular party the night that Dunbar was there, but then that Quinton Dunbar had already left after all this went down. Then that kind of makes a little more sense to me.
Maybe. Yeah, a lot to unpack with this, right?
There's a lot to unpack with this.
So the interesting part is if this went down the night before the presser, right? The team obviously had no information about it by the time he did the presser.
No, they wouldn't. They would have canceled it.
They would have canceled it. So he had kept it under the lid to that point.
And that also makes sense of if it happened after he left, why tell the team about it? Because he didn't know what happened.
Yeah. So here's the problem. You've got 5 people that stated that he was there.
Four people.
Oh, now it's down to 4?
I think it was down. Well, from what I heard from the lawyer, he said that there were 4 people that said he was there and then came back and changed their statement. And one dude who said he wasn't there consistently both times, but the police didn't include his statement as part of the original affidavit or whatever. I don't know. Okay,
so the story has drifted by these 4 witnesses. Let's say it's 4.
Yeah,
a bit here. Started out with Baker and Dunbar were there. They had a, quote, semi-automatic weapon, which I'm going to come back to that because I just the media is hilarious. So Baker and Dunbar are there with a gun and hold up these people, steal some watches. Then the story drifts to, okay, Baker and Dunbar were there, but Dunbar didn't do anything. He didn't have a gun. He wasn't really involved, but he was there.
Yeah, there were conflicting reports of whether or not he had the gun.
Right. Now it's he wasn't even there.
Right.
Okay. So what version of that do you want to believe? Number one, good luck with that. And then why did these people change their stories? Why would they have told the police that Dunbar was absolutely involved and then all of a sudden be like, nope. Now, there's one of 2 possibilities. One is that the police coerced them into saying that Dunbar was there and involved in this, or he was there and was involved with it, and they've been bribed by Dunbar and his attorney to change their story. One of these truths has to be correct.
I think there's a third option to that, is that you maybe didn't realize that they were NFL type guys, and these are guys that you'd kind of want to have coming back to your gambling parties, and if they're easy to get money out of, then you don't want to give that up.
Well,
and so then you change your story. You're like, oh, these are NFL guys. We don't want to give them up.
Oh, there's no way they didn't know they were NFL guys. I mean, according to Pat McAfee, they had been at a game earlier in the week where they had lost something like $70,000.
Well, that was actually in the police report. It said that they had lost $70,000 2 nights before. And so that was something that came out of the police report. And that was another thing that was interesting to hear the lawyer talking about, is that because the police report made it sound like Dunbar and DeAndre Baker was the other guy from the Giants. He probably did it all. He's totally guilty.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear here on the Seahawkers podcast that this is all the Giants' fault. And the player from the Giants, this is all their fault.
Allegedly.
All to blame. Not allegedly. For sure. It's a stone cold lock. Stupid East Coast team with the East Coast bias. And yeah, it's absolutely their fault, period, unless it's not. See, you see my Florio there?
I like that.
All right.
You were getting us so close to being like on the edge of liability, and then you
slander?
turned it right around, right at the end.
Yeah. That's how we've managed to stay on the waves for as long as we have.
So, yeah, none of us are ever going to know what actually happened because, well, the police, they weren't there until afterward and getting reports they were getting the best information they could at the time from the people who were there, which sounds like some of those people maybe weren't the best character type people to be giving sworn statements, as it turns out.
I don't know, legal high stakes poker game?
Yeah, sometimes those people can be untrustworthy, I think.
Huh.
And then you have all the conflicting reports. And so if the lawyer did actually bribe and coerce these people and that got out, that lawyer would be in big trouble.
Well, and isn't the lawyer a bit shady too?
He's a politician, so I feel like that fits the definition of shady.
Well, true fact. So a lawyer / politician.
Yeah. He has
snakiest individual ever created, right? He's undoubtedly, if he was one of the Harry Potter houses, Slytherin, right?
I think he has been reprimanded by the Florida bar at least once from news reports that I saw about him.
That's interesting. And then you got Baker's lawyer coming out and being like, well, my guy couldn't have done it. He brought his Xbox to play Madden.
It is funny, though, how it feels like very politics of everything, because, what is it that I think back to, like, when the whole healthcare debate was coming out, with Obamacare.
Okay.
It was, here's free healthcare for everybody. And that was how it was pitched on one side. And and then the other side says, oh, but there's death panels as part of this. Right?
What? Yeah, so you're calling those people liars? I saw death squads roaming the streets of America with Obamacare, swastikas on their chest. And then not only that, but it wasn't free for anybody.
Right.
No, but everybody lies, right? Both sides, they just these dramatic
and the
lies.
Dramatic extremes of the lie is kind of what I'm pointing to here.
Right.
These guys showed up. The gambling thing didn't even seem to be part of it. It was just that these guys showed up. They robbed everybody at the party. Their cars were parked in getaway style, and they got away with the goods. And people are like,
wait. I want to go back to getaway style too here in a second. So yeah, continue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and people are like, well, why do NFL players who don't need a whole lot of money rob $70,000 worth of stuff at a party and then just take off? That seems weird. And then, so you go from that to, oh, they weren't even there.
Right. Or they were there, but they left right before anything went down.
Yeah.
Look, I can guarantee you one thing. If I'm about to rob a place, you know what I don't do? I don't take 3 flashy cars, a Lambo, a Mercedes, and what was the other one?
I just remember there being a Lambo.
Right. Yeah. So 3, let's say it was a Porsche. It was another, I can't remember what the third one was, but it was a high dollar vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. I don't park them side by side, backed up to the house. I don't arrive in those vehicles, back them up to the house that I'm about to rob and hop out of them to go rob a joint, right?
Right.
There's there's a degree of a lack of incognito there that doesn't work at all if you're going to be a discreet robber.
Wait,
right?
Richie Incognito was there too?
He's everywhere. You can't get away from Richie. But so that's ridiculous right there. It's like, okay, obviously they pulled up and they wanted to make an entrance because they're flashy NFL players. And that's why you wouldn't take 3 separate cars either. Okay, like unless you think you're redoing the movie Heat or something, and have an elaborate getaway scheme where y'all are one of the Fast and Furious movies where y'all like take off at the same time and then like cross different streets and like these guys
drive underneath a semi as you're going into a slide.
These guys aren't playing 3-dimensional chess. They don't have some elaborate getaway scheme figured out after this, right? So that doesn't even make sense. The other thing about this story that I find interesting is the way that the police reported that there was a firearm involved. And to me, this is the type of language that either the police or the media often use to make things sound worse than they are. Okay.
Right.
So I love the phrase with a semi-automatic weapon.
That's one step away from being fully automatic.
I understand.
They practically robbed the place with an M16.
Yeah, it makes it sound like that they rolled in with an AK and an AR.
Although isn't an AR semi-automatic?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, an AR is semi-automatic.
Right.
They came there with a semi-automatic weapon. Okay.
You know what they could have done? They could have said military grade semi-automatic weapon because I carried around a 9mm when I was in the military.
Now we're getting to the crux of it. Yes. And that would be a military grade semi-automatic weapon. So for those of you who aren't that don't have much knowledge about firearms at all, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
The idea that they say it's a semi-automatic weapon, right? Ask yourself a simple question. How many pistols are a semi-automatic weapon?
Pretty much all of them, right?
Unless they're a revolver.
Right.
Okay. All right. And pretty much the only people that hang out with revolvers are dudes like me who take them into the woods, right? Or cowboy shooters, right? They're those guys that are in the cowboy shooting competitions. Every other pistol is a semi-automatic pistol, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's not like they went in there with assault weapons and jacked everybody of their watches, right? It's just that when the police phrased it
so when they
way,
say semi-automatic, that means they did not have an Old West style revolver on their hip.
Or a lever action rifle. Or a pump.
Right.
Or a bolt. Right? Like, it could literally be anything else. Uh-huh. But they say it like that to make it sound so much more devious, so much more dangerous, right? And not that I'm saying that it's a good thing that they took a gun and all into this place, if that's even true. Okay, bad idea. And took it out and waved it around. If they even had it, still bad idea.
They weren't even there, Adam. So what do you think the chances are they had a gun there?
Right. Well, okay, but I'm not saying that's a good decision if it did indeed happen. All right. But what I am saying is that for the police to word it that way, that's the type of language you use if you're trying to make something sound a lot worse than it is to railroad some guys because some deputy dog is excited to make a celebrity bust.
Oh, they were pretty excited about it too.
And
they put it out on Twitter and they tagged the Seahawks and the Giants in part of their tweet. I don't know why you don't actually tag the perpetrator. I wonder, is there protocol for that? Like, it's okay to tag their employer, but not okay to tag their actual Twitter account? Because I know Quinton Dunbar has a Twitter account.
There is no protocol for that. That is another example of the police being excited about the idea of having a nationally recognized bust.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not bagging on police as a whole. That's not what I'm doing right now. But there's a couple little things about this case that make you go,
Well, and it probably wasn't a police officer that has control of the Twitter account. Maybe.
The police doesn't have control of the police Twitter?
Well, it's somebody who works for the police.
So the police.
But it's probably not an officer.
Well, okay, fine. If you work at the police department, you work at the police department.
Sure. So, but if you're a secretary at the police department, you're not a police officer. Right?
So what? You're in charge of their messaging.
I'm just trying to find the level of authority here that we're talking about.
Who knows? Who knows? But there's just little things like that have been done. And then, I mean, equally as shady is the way that both lawyers for Baker and Dunbar have come out and been like, oh, no, they might have been on Mars that day. I don't know.
Yeah, and the first lawyer that comes out and says, my client, he might have done it, is going to be the first.
Well, I mean, in matters such as these, if you can get out ahead of the other guy, right, in writing the narrative,
yeah,
you've already won a small battle there. And that's why you see Baker's lawyer all pissy pants, because Dunbar's lawyer was the first one to come out and be like, wasn't my dude, it was all the Giants' fault, which we've already covered. It's clearly the fault
Giants' fault
of the Maras and the New York Football Giants. That's who's at fault here.
If Dunbar did anything wrong, it was because Baker, the much younger player, was pulling the strings.
Hey, look, I will say that, I mean, how old is Dunbar? 26, 27?
Yeah, he's getting up there to be, this. You could probably put some of this stuff to behind you, dude.
Oh, of course. Also, at that age, I had associated with some bad people as well that, got into situations that you're like, wait a second, how did this happen so fast?
Sure.
And, you learn to cut those people out of your life. And maybe this is that learning moment for him. Unfortunately, if I were John Schneider, just like you said, I think that I would, if it does turn out to be true, that he was involved, like legitimately, then yeah, I mean, you can do nothing but cut the guy.
Pete Carroll has his rules. Always protect the team. One of those rules.
Yeah.
You're losing a 5th round pick that you traded Nick Vannett for.
Right.
So big whoop.
Big whoop in that sense. A big whoop in the sense that you are losing a guy who's supposedly very talented.
Oh yeah.
So it's a bummer, man. I mean, this is one of those things that happens in an off season, going into a season with very high hopes, that is a bit of a gut punch. And I'm kind of mad at him.
He did put out a statement afterwards saying, I would like to thank all my fans for their support and apologize to the Seattle Seahawks organization for any unnecessary distractions that these allegations against me have caused. In addition, I am very grateful to be a part of a team that supports one another and uphold the credibility of each of its members through adverse situations. Moving forward, this entire situation has taught me how to not associate myself with environments that may mischaracterize my values and who I am.
That was fun.
Yeah, well, you know what? The first arrest of the offseason is always a fun time.
The first arrest. Like it's an annual event. That is funny.
Pretty much an annual event.
I know. That's what's funny about it. I mean, funny, not funny.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I mean by funny. Like
right.
Not very.
You know what? It'd be funny, not funny, if the Seahawks added more stars on offense, like John Clayton's talking about, and that star happened to be Antonio Brown.
What?
That's what the story today that came out with John Clayton, that they want to add more stars on offense around Russell, as he asked for, and that could be Devontae Freeman, although that's not a star, but okay. Another name that's been bantied about is Antonio Brown, and I don't want him on the team.
Is this from John Florio Clayton?
Yes. This is a story today.
I don't want Antonio Brown.
No.
I mean, maybe he's put his stuff behind him.
Nope. That's years of therapy to put that sort of stuff behind you.
Last season was a roller coaster, and he wasn't even on our team.
I know. No, thank you.
No, that seems like too much. I hear Josh Gordon's applying for reinstatement.
Yeah, I would rather take Josh Gordon. He can play in the slot. I mean, I know Antonio Brown could technically play in the slot, but he's an outside guy, right? So who are you taking snaps away from, DK or Tyler?
Yeah. I mean,
Neither.
Antonio Brown is a Hall of Fame caliber player, but
understood. He's a Hall of Fame caliber crazy.
Based on everything that happened last year, yeah.
Yeah.
How amazing is Mike Tomlin of a coach to keep that all together, apparently? If Tomlin was able to get all that out of Antonio Brown and we didn't hear any of that stuff that went on through his time in Pittsburgh, that's pretty impressive.
Now, you heard a few rumblings of him being a diva, but
that's what. But if that's all that came out,
right? I mean, he basically kept the guy from unraveling, the latter half of his time with the Steelers. Because by all accounts, when he joined the Steelers, he was a really hardworking dude, 6th round pick, chip on his shoulder. I
think
guy.
The worst thing that we heard about him was when Juju was named like the offensive MVP or something.
Right. And he got pissy about it.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. Good for the Steelers. I'm not giving Mike Tomlin any credit. I don't like that organization. So they might as well be held responsible for Baker and Dunbar's arrest as well.
If Tomlin could have stopped it and he didn't, then
right. I mean, I know he had no knowledge of it, but he still could have.
He could have.
Who else can I blame?
We could blame Louis Delory, who came in via comment on YouTube.
Why is it Louis' fault?
Well, Louis says, hey guys, been a Seahawks fan my whole life, had season tickets for 5 years, was there for their first NFC championship in 2015, but I can't lie. If there's no fans in stands, I'm done with sports. What's your guys' take on this? I don't think sports will ever be the same if no fans are there. I will never come back if they play games without fans.
Okay. No, that's interesting. I mean, I've heard a lot of different people have different ideas on that, and I could understand why Louis wouldn't be stoked about no fans in the stands and what that would mean and what the games would even be like. I mean, they would be very different. There's no doubt about it. But a couple things. Number one, people saying, well, this is going to be changed forever, and maybe to a small degree it will, but there is going to be a day in the next year or two where there is either a really great treatment for the bug that if you get it, like, it's really not that big of a deal. Here, take 2 of these and call me in the morning, right?
Right.
Like, there's going to be a day, there's either that or a vaccine. It will come.
Yeah, because Canadians can only go without hockey for so long, they are going to find a way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but put it all on the Canadians. That's great. So, number one, like, there will be a day when sports are back and the fans are back, and it's the same as it used to be, or at least very, very, very close. Now, in that interim, if you're asking me personally, would I rather have no sports because the fans aren't going to be there, or sports without the fans? I'm going to take sports without the fans.
I would take it. I heard, was it Joe Buck who was on the radio this last week saying that there were discussions of the TV broadcast, including crowd noise and
that's one thing you could do.
It wouldn't that way. It wouldn't seem so weird watching it, because my concern is that it's going to seem weird watching it. Because I turned on, they had like they're playing old wrestling matches. They had WrestleMania 3 on, with Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, and I brought in my kids and said, we're watching this.
Really? You exposed them to professional wrestling?
That's not just professional wrestling. That's American history. Okay.
If you say so. I've always hated the whole WWE thing, but okay.
Well, watching that, so I watched that, and then I was flipping through the channels, and it was WWE. Like, they're actually still continuing to do the shows because I guess they're testing everybody. They have them in a studio. Mm-hmm. And the difference between that with a crowd and people cheering and then watching it in a studio where it's just people, it's like the difference of watching a real performance and watching community theater rehearsal.
Okay. I mean, I get the analogy and all that, and you're like, I don't know that I'd like it because it'd be weird. Well, guess what? Not everything's perfect. I would much rather take, this is different than you don't get nothing.
Sure.
And I would much rather have that. Now, on top of all of that, people are like, well, you couldn't possibly do the fake crowd noise on the broadcast. That'd be ridiculous. Would it? Like, ask yourself really, really quickly, all of you Madden players, is that crowd noise when you're playing that game real or unreal?
Yeah, it's not real.
Oh, it's not real? But yet it fits with the game?
Uh-huh.
You're telling me they couldn't do that with live football?
Oh, yeah. You could have somebody with a board. There's people who are talented enough that go, okay, it's pre-snap right here. We make the crowd noise a little bit louder because the crowd gets a little loud, right before the snap. Then it quiets down after they snap the football. You fade the button down a little bit. Big play. Oh, there's the crowd. They got loud, the big play cheer button.
Right, yeah. Seahawks are home on this game, and Chris Carson fumbles. There would be a collective groan from the crowd. Ooh. I mean, they could do it. Like again, would it be perfect? No. Would it be just like having real fans there? No. And would the game be affected because the players can't feed off the crowd energy? Absolutely. But I would rather have that. I think the players would rather have that than nothing.
I could see that.
And not only that, but I guess yesterday as I was driving to Kalispell, or the day before, to hang out with my dad, I had 2.5 hours to kind of think about all of the, super bug things and all, how the world is and all that. I was like, I'm tired of getting mad about all this stuff and frustrated. Like, I got to start looking at like the positive things behind this. Like, there's going to be things that come out of this that are unexpected, that are positive. So in terms of doing the games without the fans, there may be innovations in the way that games are broadcast that come out of the experimentation that will be necessary to put the games on TV that are net positives going forward. And I'm willing to go through the bumps and to look back in 10 years and be like, man, that was a little bit ridiculous for these reasons. But boy, we got this out of it and we got that out of it. Worth it.
You know what would be pretty entertaining is seeing Tom Brady chewing out one of his receivers and being able to hear that because there's no fans in the stadium and pick that up on the audio and have that broadcast over the TV. I think that could be entertaining.
So there has been talk about what they're going to do with the NBA if it comes back here for a truncated playoffs or whatever it is, right? And they've talked about, we'll just listen to what the players are saying. Like that's the way that we're going to go. And there's definitely a way to do that. And that would be unbelievably entertaining, right?
Uh-huh.
I would enjoy that. The other thing is that they could do something where they allow other people to simulcast the game in terms of like, we could do like live as the game's going on, back and forth, me and you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, or your other favorite podcasters or commentators or whatever it is, right? So there'd be multiple streams of it and somehow make it so all the ad revenue goes back to the NFL, right?
Right.
And so that way you could kind of listen to your commentary of choice without the fans and be entertained that way. And that could be another way you could go about it. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying there's a lot of opportunities to be creative here, and I'd rather focus on that rather than the idea of, it just won't be the same without fans, which it won't. And that, and I can get why people would be disappointed, but let's try to focus on the positives.
I like where your head's at, but it could be better than what we've had in the past.
Indeed. There's always that risk, right? That it could actually be better than it was in the past.
A lot of people thought this last draft was better than some of the past drafts. No, it wasn't. Because it turned into a Sunday fluff piece on every single guy, and that got old. Jersey numbers came out for the Seahawks.
Oh, okay. I had seen the headline, had not clicked to see who's going to be wearing what.
A little bit of controversy here. Some of the non-controversial ones: Jordan Brooks, linebacker, 56; Darrell Taylor, 58; Damian Lewis, 68. Oh, Justin Britt's old number.
Okay,
goes to Damian Lewis. Colby Parkinson, 84. Mm-hmm. Alton Robinson is number 98.
Okay.
Freddie Swain, 18.
Okay.
Which is Cason Williams' old number.
I know you're upset about the teens number for a receiver. I get it.
It's a teens number and it's Cason Williams' number.
Yeah, I get it, man.
Did he ask Cason Williams for permission to wear 18?
Look, if you want John Schneider to cut Freddie Swain right now, I understand.
I don't want the guy on my team. DJ Dallas, though. Number 31.
Okay. I mean, I did see a couple people semi unhappy about that and everything. Well, here's the thing. At least he's not playing safety.
Right.
So that's good.
Playing running back. Totally. Not even on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. And look, the number's fair game until it's retired. It's just how it is.
Do you think they should retire 31?
I think they will retire 31.
Really?
Yeah.
Before or after 24?
After, but not long, and before 29.
Yeah. 29 had some interesting things going on for him over these past couple weeks.
Yep. I don't know how much I want to touch that one. Like that's one, like, I don't know, man. Like going and hanging out with chicks other than your wife with your brother and
in the same room, and yeah.
Yeah.
That's a relationship with my brother that I don't relate to.
Nope. Because I'm related, or because you're related to your brother.
Don't want to have that kind of relationship.
Yeah. So, contrary to what, Earl had to say that these things happen. I mean, I guess technically he's not wrong because it happened, but it's not like it happens on the regular. So
it's DeAndre Baker's fault.
Well, clearly, duh. I blame the 49ers.
Oh.
Yeah. Because
they haven't received any blame yet this episode.
I know. And it is all their fault that Earl got in the situation that he's in. And, before you say there's nothing that connects them, the Niners know why. They know why.
I hate that team so much.
Exactly. That's why.
Why would they do that to Earl?
I don't know. Dicks.
Well, let's take a quick break and we can find out how to work the Rams into this too.
Oh, I can do that when we come back.
Getting into the second half of the show, covered a lot of real news in the first half of the show. Now we get to talk about the fun news.
No, there's fun news.
There's stuff that's fun to talk about that we can pretend is news.
Like this Bleacher Report headline. This is where I'm going to hang something on the Rams because it's their fault that this happened.
Okay.
But there's a new acronym that apparently I'm going to have to get used to. Rams likely to go with RBBC. What do you think that is?
RBBC. Rams British Broadcasting Channel.
I'll give you the underlying headline.
I don't want to go with the BBC acronym that first came to my mind.
Oh, no. Well, let me get your head out of there. Sean McVay feels LA has, quote, 3 really good backs in Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, and Cam Akers.
So they're like initials of the running back's initials?
Running back by committee.
Oh.
That's what that now means, apparently. That
we can't just say running back by committee. We have to make an abbreviation.
Now it's RBBC. So that's fun. I really enjoy that, and I blame the Rams.
I saw that Flocktimus put up a side-by-side of the uniforms for the Chargers and Rams. The ones with
You mean the Charger Rams?
The Charger Rams, yeah. Because they both have the similar blue color, that royal blue.
Yeah.
The Chargers' worst uniform, because really that blue color of the Chargers is their worst of their uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
It's still better than the Rams uniform.
Yeah. Yeah. The Rams uniform is totally pathetic. Apparently they ran out of yellow stitching to go around their Rams tag. Like they had to conserve on that. Maybe it's because the supply chain's broken. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental.
No, it was blue stitching around the patch, and then they used the yellow stitching to finish it off by hand, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, the weird thing about the Rams patch is that when I initially saw a picture of the jerseys, I thought, oh, that's cool. They put Los Angeles Rams up on their chest, up on the upper left part of the chest. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, that's kind of neat, a neat placement for it. It's different. Okay. And then it zooms in, and it doesn't say Los Angeles Rams. It's just yellow squiggle stitching and the word Rams.
Okay, so it's interesting that you saw it that way because you're both right and wrong at the same time.
The white ones have Los Angeles Rams, right?
That's exactly right. So I believe the idea is for the away jersey, you will have Los Angeles Rams on it because you're the away team. And then when you're home, it's just Rams and a little bit of stitching that looks like the middle of Charlie Brown's shirt.
Yeah, so you have, well, and it wasn't even just that issue with the Rams jersey and running out of the stitching. The yellow gradient of the numbers is kind of weird.
That's the worst part, is the gradient on the numbers.
I don't even know if that's the worst part. The worst part, I think, is just how soft the numbers look. You put them up against the LA Chargers numbers, and they're kind of block numbering. And the Rams numbers are all rounded, and and you have the gradient yellow. They look soft.
Okay, I understand that. I've heard that criticism a few times. As far as the exact font of the numbers, the only one that I've ever really hated in the NFL was the digital time clock font that the Bucs had there for a while.
Those were scimitars. But those were scimitar numbers, Adam.
Well, they were stupid, and Though, I mean, I don't know. I don't mind the more curved numbers. I mean, the Steelers have those numbers and doesn't come across soft to me. But the gradient, that's what feels like a fifth grader like found the gradient tool in Microsoft Paint and was like, "Well, this is cool.
We could use this on the numbers."
Yeah, that's lame.
I'm looking this up. I don't believe you. So you're saying that the Rams stole the Steelers font on their jerseys?
Well, similar. I mean, the Steelers numbers are the rounded numbers.
Yeah.
They're similar.
Yeah, ish.
I'm not saying it's exact. I'm just, there's lots of serif typefaces that aren't exactly the same, but they're all serif typefaces, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize that the Steelers had changed their number font recently. Because you look back to the old school style recently. Numbers, and they're blocked. Well, I guess everybody in the NFL kind of had that same number font back in the day, right?
In the 80s, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little news item that just came across. Brandon, how do you feel about instead of onside kicks, they allow you to go for a 4th and 15?
Yeah, that's one that's been talked about, I feel like, for a little while now. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
They need to have something that is, now that the onside kick doesn't work anymore.
Correct.
They have to have something that allows teams to get back into the game late just to make it compelling.
And that's a difficult enough thing to try, a 4th and 15.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question is, okay, so, all right, so you would have scored, and so they just put it where you would kick off from and call it a 4th and 15?
Right.
Okay.
Again, I think it's one of those things I'd like to see as a trial run, much like the pass interference thing that if they decide after the season they don't even have to vote on it to come back, it just goes away. And apparently it's just going away this offseason.
You act like that decision wasn't made when they implemented the rule.
It was made about week 4. I think it was made right after Russell Wilson.
Wow, you give them that long. Dude, this whole thing was a conspiracy.
After Russell Wilson completed the pass to Tyler Lockett against the Steelers. So was that week 2 or 3 or 4? Might have been week.
Somewhere in there.
It was somewhere
early in the season.
Yeah.
There you go.
It was right after that because they decided to give us the pass interference call because they missed the helmet to helmet on Russ. And the NFL decided just after that they weren't even going to bother.
It's hilarious that you give them that much credit. So I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but let me put on my conspiracy hat here real quick, because the NFL never, ever, ever, ever wanted the pass interference challenge to survive. Not ever. Yeah. And so the only reason they implemented it was so that they could get everybody to shut up about it by intentionally making it fail, which is exactly what they did. It's how they instructed the refs to deal with it. And they made it so that it didn't make any sense.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they did. They made it. They instructed the refs to botch it so badly that it wasn't even discussed that it was going to go away at the end of the year. It was already predetermined. They wanted it to fail so that they could kill it and never have to deal with it again.
That's not a conspiracy theory, Adam. That's exactly what happened.
It is a conspiracy theory because the league has not admitted that is the actual truth.
Okay. But it is visually what we saw with our eyeballs. Essentially moving the bar for the refs so they never knew how to call pass interference.
They never set the bar for the refs. Yeah. And basically, from what I can understand, is they basically said to the refs, like, I don't care what they challenge, you just say the call stands.
That's essentially what happened at the end.
It was stupid. Because it worked. It would have worked if the refs were allowed to actually overturn calls.
Yeah, oh yeah. They could have made it work.
Easily.
They make it work in other leagues.
Yeah. It could have been easily a net positive for the league, but the league didn't want any part of it.
Yeah, and we would have beat the 49ers in week 17 when the 49ers dude ran into our tight end, and we would have got a free play at the goal line, and we would have won.
Exactly.
So, great job, NFL.
Thanks a lot. So now it's their fault.
And the Cardinals.
Yeah. It's definitely the Cardinals' fault. For reasons unknown. But you pick one. You
know someone who I've been waiting to assign some blame to as we get into our Welcome to the Flock segment?
Oh, no.
Doug Chancel Harry.
The DCH?
Yes, it is his fault that we're still doing the show.
You're right.
He's been supporting this show more than anybody else, and DCH came in with his annual donation, $500 via Venmo.
Wow. See, you're right. You're right. That guy, he keeps screwing up and sending us money so that we keep producing the show.
Thanks a lot, DCH.
Yeah.
But really, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks. It's a ton. I mean, that could have gone. That money could go to the little MCH's college fund, but no.
Oh, it's little MCH's birthday coming up too.
Oh, well, merry birthday!
Merry birthday!
Yeah, and I hope I don't get scolded for wishing him a merry birthday.
Adam. Yeah, it still fits.
Yeah, I'm still trying to do better.
Well, it was also a good week from Michael Paul. Sent in $112 and 20 cents.
Oh, fantastic.
I like the 20 cents in there. Michael with some Rashad Penny love, I think.
Always and forever.
I think this is because, our checks that we were such a big part in orchestrating that went out to the entire nation. I think this is our reward here this past week.
It must be. I mean, and you're all welcome for that, by the way. So just wait for the next round.
Working on it, especially since this round resulted in 2 really nice donations from Michael Paul and DCH.
Absolutely, which makes sending out those checks worth it for all of us. But, if you want that second round of checks, we definitely have to get to 1,000 little flockers. I mean, that's just where it's at. You're going to have to get after it. So go.
Well, we did get one more. That's coming up. I'll read a note from Michael Paul that came in. Says, while listening to the latest show, I realized I may have let my support lapse into the freeloader category. I chose to contribute on a one-time basis, mostly because I don't like monthly subscriptions and avoid them when possible. But I started thinking about when I last made a contribution, and I'm definitely certain it was long enough ago that my listening would now be categorized as freeloading, and I needed to make amends. There's enough bad catfish happening in the world today that I needed to make sure my Hawkra was well into the positive. The bonus content is good when it comes out throughout the year, and the Pick'em League is fun, but the perk that I just didn't want to see go away was my membership into the very exclusive Facebook group, where so many great people share their thoughts, as well as the Slack chats during games. That alone is worth the price of admission, so I am making things right by making another contribution in support of the fine work you both do. Okay, the fine work Brandon does, and the thanks for Adam for just showing up. I definitely don't want any ED or Manscaped commercials on the pod, so I'm doing my part to help make sure that never happens again. The only condition I apply to my contribution is that when, and not if, Adam spills one of his girly hard seltzers on his recording equipment, he pays for that out of his own pocket.
Fair. Fair.
So my contribution was submitted, and I hope it helps things out. I appreciate what you both do, as well as the guests that come on. Eventually, Clinton, to a lesser degree, Adam will appreciate and value what Rashad Penny brings to the club, but I respect that haters gonna hate sometimes. Nothing to do with the Hawks, but I'd like to thank my fabulous breakfast partner and everybody else out there on the front lines for heading into the ER every day and helping those out who do get sick through this illness. We haven't had it as bad in our area as other parts of the country and the world, but it's bad enough, and those that are dealing with this every day are much appreciated. Keep up the good work. Go Hawks, from Michael.
Go Hawks, Michael. And I'm glad to hear you and yours are both doing okay through this, especially with her profession and what she has to do. That's awesome to hear. Appreciate it, man. Really do. And you're welcome that I show up. Just doing my limited part. But I will say that I'm not as much of a Rashad Penny hater as Clinton.
Yeah, Clinton is by far the worst.
Yeah. Well, worst / depending on your...
He's the worst, and it's because of his friends who are Giants fans.
Oh, that's why. You're right. It has to go back to the Giants.
So it all goes back to DeAndre Baker.
Isn't like dad or uncle a Giants fan?
I think
he was trying to tell us all about how the Giants weren't so terrible, and it was like, that's neat.
Yeah, well, it was one of his best buddies when we were at the game.
Oh, well, of course, yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely, again, the Giants' fault. That might be the title of the show.
It's the Giants' fault.
But what's great is that Michael felt compelled to donate because of the Ring of Honor group, right? So I want to thank all of the Ring of Honor members for doing all the work to keep the contributions flowing.
It's a very cool group.
Yeah, it's more them than us.
And one of the latest members to join that Ring of Honor group and get us one more closer to 1,000 that we need for another round of checks. Immortal Wood Designs came in at 1212, says, after being a freeloader for at least 2 years now, I have come to realize that there is no other podcast out there that I look forward to as much as the Seahawkers pod. It is for that joy and the numerous hours of entertainment that have been provided over the years that I finally realized I needed to get in the flock. That's from Kyle.
You know, Kyle is like kind of the test case of potential flockers, right? I mean, this is kind of the pattern that people seem to follow. They pick up the show. It's a little iffy at first. Then that's usually my fault. And then, usually they become to acquire a taste for it. And then once that's happened, then about 2 years down the line, they're like, this is essential to my life, and I need to give them my hard-earned cash. And so I appreciate Kyle for following the blueprint to becoming a little flocker.
It is the blueprint, yeah. And if you haven't checked out Immortal Wood Designs, they have a Facebook page, and Kyle does some amazing work.
That's awesome. All right, I did not check out the Facebook page as of yet, and that is now on my radar. I may have to get in touch with him for some woodworking tips as I continue the addition on the cabin. I've got some ideas that are decorative, but I'm not sure that my skills are on the level to pull it off. So I may
just
need
outsource it to Kyle. I think he looks like he knows what he's doing.
Oh, well, I'm sure he would kill it more than I would. It's more the idea that I need to do it myself so I can figure out how to do it myself. But I need some expert guidance is really where it's at.
Yeah. And, one of the reasons why I love what we do, Adam, and listeners supporting the show, we don't have to worry about the show going away because we have a drop in advertising money coming in. I've watched, there's some networks out there that could be in trouble right now.
Right.
The crazy thing is, with everything going on, is we actually have more people who dropped from supporting the show in April 2019 than in April 2020.
Isn't that nuts?
Isn't that nuts?
I mean, that is so unbelievable and amazing. The idea that the loyalty of the little flockers to us, of all people, is just it's mind blowing. And the thing is that we may need to rely on that more going forward because for those of you, most of the little flockers know, but for those of you who don't know, my job relies on interstate travel, which has become impossible. So I have not done a job since January.
Yeah.
I will be doing one this weekend, thank goodness, but I don't know how long that's going to last. It may come to a point where this is how I make my living. At that point, if that really is where this goes, then maybe we'll have to focus on doing like 2 shows a week and hope for the best.
Yeah, well, we can figure it out when that does come to pass, and you are relying on this a little bit more. So, it's the good thing for you is that the governor of our state dropped the 14-day quarantine here at the end of the month. So when you come back into the state, you're only going to have to quarantine for the until the end of the month now.
Well, I guess that's true, but here's the thing: is that if a 14-day quarantine wouldn't have been any different than how I regularly live,
right?
So. This really hasn't been a huge adjustment in my life, to be honest. No.
Yeah. Funny how that works out.
It is.
Yeah, it's the extroverts that are struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be an introverted extrovert, I think, is how I would describe myself.
Right. Yeah, I fall into that category.
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
Got a couple of reviews. One from Australia saying,
all right.
Can't you just use my name? Shane. That's his full username.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can use Shane's name.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Was there a problem with using Shane's name?
I don't know. I think because it's a username. I don't know. Maybe because Shane was taken. And maybe it's a one-time thing. You can't. Yeah. Not everybody can be Shane.
Not everybody can be Shane. That is for sure. I mean, Shane is Shane.
Yeah.
So
Leaves a great review, says great show. Love the show. Adam and Brandon do a great job. Funny, entertaining, and very knowledgeable about all things Seahawks. They have great podcast chemistry, and I look forward to each new released episode. Missing Adam's rants at the moment, though. Cut loose again, mate. Keep up the great work. Thanks, guys. Go Hawks. From Shane, Aussie Hawk.
Hey, go Hawks. Shane, appreciate that. I've been trying to be more positive as of late, because it just seems like the thing to do in these times. But I can get pissy at any time. Yeah, hold on, buddy.
Yeah.
Like the rants will be there.
And then we had a review from I don't know quite how to pronounce this. PHUCKYU. P Hucky U 121.
P Hucky U.
P Hucky U.
I think that's it.
9 out of 10 are 10s. Ooh, hey, 90%.
Wow. Okay, that's good.
Take episode 294 as an example of the bad apple, and know that Adam's overall general vibe doesn't usually affect his content quite so much. Well, it absolutely does, but in a good way. The draft takes a lot of time spent watching tape. These two juggle multiple gigs, and they rock. Brandon is taking over the Seahawk world for the better, and Adam is that uncle you love to have over 9 out of the 10 times. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Hey, man, I will take 90% of the time every time. Like, I appreciate that. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And honestly, too, the draft stuff, when it comes to my contribution to the show, is the part that is by far the weakest. By far the part that I have the most disdain for. And I could understand why that's not fun for some folks who are really into it. So I think that's fair. And, to Mr. Screw Me, that sounds about right.
If 9 out of 10 shows that we do are good, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got another email from one of our members of the flock, Kevin from Keene. Says, I was a little bored on my day off, as I'm sure most of us have been recently. Actually, thinking about it, perhaps I have been slightly less bored than the majority of the country since I am a critical worker and I am fortunate to be always employed. But nonetheless, I found myself, not unlike what image the rest of the country is right now, just absolutely hankering for some Seahawks football. So I thought I would share what I stumbled upon Seahawks football on my Roku NFL app with Game Pass. On the on-demand section was the last game Seattle played against the Packers. After watching the first half, I felt enlightened for every move we have made this offseason, including, but not limited to, the decision to not re-sign Clowney, which I would not have guessed in a million years going into the rewatch. He was playing dinged up, and that certainly did contribute to his level of overall performance, but I also noticed he lost situational awareness multiple times, which hugely impacted penalties. Curious if you two see the same. I also found myself noticing that just all the very close calls throughout the game. It made me feel that the NFL game is no longer a game of inches, but a game of pixels. The non-conclusive nomenclature has become more of a staple than I think anyone would have ever anticipated. At the end of it all, not only was I left wanting for one more quarter, but a much better way to determine the much better team in close plays. Food for thought. But linebackers, D-line, O-line, and lack of legitimate tight end, as well as a healthy running back who was fully in shape, sure look like the areas to focus on going forward. Sure seems like John and Pete keep hammering away at making sure we compete with every decision they have made so far this offseason. Anyway, I was just curious to hear your thoughts and to see if you have rewatched this game. It really was closer than I remembered. Thanks again for the great content year-round. You guys certainly helped me get through the daily grind. Love you guys and stay safe. Kevin from Keene.
Yeah, go Hawks. Kevin, I have not rewatched that game. I'm not a game rewatcher as a whole. It's just not in my DNA. I mean, because I watched it and I know what happened. Sometimes I will, occasionally, if I want to be sure about certain points and things of that nature. I mean, I'll rewatch it like maybe a couple days after if I'm doing the pod, right? Just to get stuff. But to go back a year or two later, generally not so much. But with that said, I think his assessment that game was much closer than people give credit for is something we talked about a few shows back, in the fact that, Aaron Rodgers really didn't tear us up except for a couple big throws, right? It was more the running game and those sort of things that in the defense of the Packers that made it difficult on us early. And it does validate that a little bit, kind of our take on that. Mm-hmm. The other thing is with Clowney, He is right in the sense that I think one of the reasons that he hasn't gotten that big time payday yet is there is an inconsistency factor with him. And there's times where he looks as dominant as ever, and there's times that he looks like he's out of place in the scheme. And again, the injury absolutely played a huge part in that, but that kind of goes to the whole of Clowney, right? How many times is he playing through injury? And that's awesome, and you love the heart in all of that, but it's the idea that he is that injured that often that makes it difficult for people to want to re-sign him. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, I look at what John and Pete have done this offseason, and, short of the Dunbar thing kind of blowing up, they really have made a pretty good effort at addressing everything, and I can understand their reluctance in giving Clowney that big deal.
I think once that the Seahawks have addressed pass rush, whether it's through Clowney or getting Everson Griffin as that one final piece, because
Myles Garrett,
or Myles Garrett, that was fun, yeah.
That was fun. That guy that came up with that little hoax, whatever his username was again, what was that?
Everyone loves nudes.
Yeah, that was hilarious. He's like, he was a Packers fan. He's like, everybody could be mad at me. And I was like, no, I'm not mad at you. That was hilarious.
I forgot that it feels like a while ago that we did that little bonus show that we put out to our members of the flock.
Yeah. Just before he kind of came clean, which we both kind of felt like.
Oh, yeah. I was able to tag the end of that show after you and I hung up because I wasn't going to, call you back and have you come back, down the mountain or whatever. Yep. But I did tag his, I recorded his statement and included it at the end of that show because he came clean like right after we got off the phone.
Oh, nice. That tied that up nicely then. But yeah, hats off to that dude. That was hilarious. But once they do actually round out the pass rush, I think you're right. The offseason grade in terms of what they've accomplished, I think will be notably higher.
And it'll all depend on how the offensive line comes together early on in the season too.
I think they've given themselves enough chances in terms of the overall numbers of guys with some degree of pedigree to find 5 dudes that can get it done.
You would hope so.
It feels that way. I mean, I don't have any solid things I can point to. I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, there's enough dudes there that I think there's a very solid chance that they come away with an offensive line that is a very solid offensive line.
Yeah, they can at least be as good as they were last year.
Yeah, or maybe as good as they were the year before, which I think they were better the year before.
But it definitely does see, like Kevin was pointing out, that a lot of the moves they've made this offseason, especially drafting the linebacker, you go back and watch that Packers game and you think, oh, yeah, they really could have used a linebacker with some speed in that game. And so it does seem like they're putting a lot of emphasis on that playoff loss.
Well, I don't know if it's just on that playoff loss. Like, after I got to thinking about the Brooks pick and the way that our division rivals play, especially the Niners, right? Their offense is definitely predicated around running to the edges. Yeah. And we definitely felt slow at linebacker, especially on the outside. I'm not calling Bobby slow.
He looked down compared to his previous year.
Which
doesn't mean that he's on his way down either.
No, he went from unbelievably great to pretty great last year.
Oh, hey, we had this one come in. I know we want to get to do better and better at life, but we had Del Griffith come in via YouTube. And I think this was one that you and I talked about, but we haven't had a chance to talk about on the show yet.
Oh.
So maybe I might be refreshing your memory. This may have gone...
You are refreshing my memory. I've totally forgot about this.
Because this came in after the draft show.
Okay.
And this... Del, apparently he didn't seem too happy with us after that show.
Well, and again, I mean, we talked about it after the review from the last guy, about how maybe the draft show isn't my place to shine, so...
I feel like I need a good voice for Del.
Can you get the dude I'm getting a Del guy to read this? Could that be Del's voice?
I don't know. Do you guys actually do your homework when it comes to Schneider/Carroll Seahawk draft? They are always going to go after who they see as the most instantly impactful players available, which is a lot harder than it sounds. They did that with every pick this year. Let's take Jordan Brooks, for instance. The Ravens were going to take Brooks at number 28, and at least 6 other teams had Brooks rated above Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray. Then there's Darrell Taylor. Darrell Taylor will be the most dominant defensive player out of Tennessee since Eric Berry.
Wow.
And Taylor was playing with a fractured shin all year. If you're going to cry about anything, and oh, how you cry about passing on Houston offensive tackle Josh Jones at pick number 69. That was the one pick that I questioned, and I questioned it for about 5 seconds because I, like you two, don't ever get to question Schneider or Carroll, even if you claim that's your job. Please start working on your resumes.
Wait, my resume?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll just, okay. That's interesting.
Because this is your job.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
As far as personnel goes, they are the most important part of the best run organization in the NFL. If you need proof of that claim, check the record on the most picked up players after being cut. Since May 2011, the Seahawks lead the NFL by a large margin on post-cut pickups. The bottom line is this. First, take a stress tab and trust in the fact that Schneider and Carroll are great at what they do, and they will lead the Seahawks to the I shouldn't read it in that voice. Trust in the fact that Schneider and Carroll are great at what they do, and they will lead the Seahawks to the 2021 Super Bowl, and the Seahawks will win it. Because that didn't deserve a snidey voice. That I actually really like that comment.
I would have stuck with the snidey voice, but you could have done it as if he was excited to be, that was a positive
Okay. Yeah.
in snidey voice.
Second, the only way the 49ers get back to the Super Bowl in 2021 is if they all buy. Oh, he says if they all butt tickets, but I think he means if they all buy tickets.
Yeah, typos happen. Okay.
I'll correct your typo, Dell. And finally, it's time for a career change, guys. After listening to you drone on about the Seahawks 2020 draft mistakes, it's time for one more farewell broadcast and then give up the ghost. Dick's Drive-Ins always needs fryer cook guys, and if you're both willing to leave the state as an act of good faith, I'll drive you both to SeaTac. This was the first and worst time I'd listened to a broadcast of your dog catfish show, and I'm truly sorry. Listening to the horror that is the Seahawkers podcast is like listening to bad reruns of the Brady Bunch. I'd compare it to subjecting yourself to a mind-numbing Mike Brady lecture, but in stereo. It's time for you two bozos to join the Peace Corps. I hope this sinks in. No matter what you both call yourself, you are not Seahawks fans. So long, and go flock yourselves. From Dell.
Oh, well, go Hawks, Dell. That's an interesting review of sorts. That's hilarious. I didn't understand that we had Del Griffith, the NFL insider, listening to the show. I mean, with his insider information regarding how many teams were about to take Jordan Brooks or had him ranked as highly or whatever it is that he said, 6 of them?
Yeah, 6 other teams had Brooks rated above Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray. Now, I will give Del, and obviously Del Griffith, that's not his real name. That's John Candy from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I did not make the connection.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you have to be over 50 to really get that connection, but...
Well, if he's over 50, that's awfully petty for being that old, but that's cool.
Well, it was reruns of Brady Bunch. He might be 40 with us.
Maybe.
But anyway, what was I about to say?
I don't know. You were going to give him credit for something.
Yes, the Bengals. On the Bengals website, one of their official releases that they were thinking about taking Brooks at the top of round 2.
Okay.
So there's one team.
Sure. So I don't think the
Ravens were absolutely. I don't think the Ravens came out and said that they're absolutely going to take Brooks ahead of Patrick Queen.
Right. The question was at the beginning that do you guys actually do your homework, and the answer is kinda when it comes to the draft. Because, and again, if it's his first time listening, then maybe he didn't quite catch on. This isn't our job. This is our hobby. So thanks for tuning in on our hobby. But, I think in our hobby, it is our duty to give our opinions, whether you feel they're founded or not, on the different players. And newsflash, because I'm a Seahawks fan, I think we have the green light to go ahead and maybe have some critiques about John and Pete over the years, because you know what? They haven't done everything absolutely right every single time. Everything has been perfect except when the New York Giants intervene and screw things up. Right, exactly. So that's what Del forgot to mention, is this is all the Giants' fault. But that was interesting. I'm still wondering what a stress tab is. I'm wondering what his deal with Dick's Drive-In Fry Cooks is, because that's kind of a jerk comment to say that that's a downgrade from what we do. Yeah. They make delicious fried things at Dick's. So, that's kind of seems like a lateral move. But, and for him, and this is going to be a bonus for him, is he doesn't even have to drive us to the airport, Brandon, because we're not in the state to begin with. Yeah, if he would have listened to more than one show, he may have gotten that impression. In that show, it was mentioned we live in Montana, but he does his research and knows everything and is all over it. So that's cool. I don't even know if we were that overly negative about the draft. I think that's the part that bothered me the most. It was like I said about Brooks is like I was surprised, and then was like, oh, when I go back and look at him and think about things, and then look at Sam Gold's breakdown, like I think that he could be a very good player, and it makes some sense, right? Yeah. And then you look at, I think probably the guy that we disagree on the most is Darrell Taylor, and mine is just I don't know which guy I saw on tape. Which guy do I choose to believe is the Seahawks have drafted, and apparently they've drafted a Hall of Famer. So. Maybe all these guys, maybe we screwed up. Maybe every one of these guys should just get fitted for the gold jacket now, because John and Pete are gods. And, I guess we'll retire to becoming what team are we going to become a fan of, Brandon, since we're apparently not Seahawks fans? The Tampa Bay Bucks won the offseason. Right. And go root for them, I suppose. Bucks, I go Browns. See how it works out. Yeah. They'll probably end up in the Super Bowl together. Yeah. The one thing that is clear is that we've done this for 8 years now? I think does it start our 8th year in August? I think August starts our 8th year. Okay. So right about there, 8 years. If there's one thing I know is that non-Seahawks fans would do a Seahawks podcast for 7 or 8 years. For 7 or 8 years. Definitely not fans. Definitely got to keep that going. With a pair of season tickets, but that's cool. I think, maybe we should go down the list of draft picks and come up with a review that's maybe more suitable to what Dell would expect. Okay, in 30 seconds. Let's do that. Okay. Here, real quick. Jordan Brooks. More like the next Derek Brooks. Yeah. Darrell Taylor. More like the next Lawrence Taylor. No, definitely a prototypical guy who will make Lawrence Taylor look like the lesser of the two players. Damian Lewis. Might as well be called Captain Road Grader. The one thing that I know for sure, Damian Lewis will allow zero pressures ever on Russell Wilson throughout his 23-year career. Colby Parkinson. His hair will mesmerize defenses so much that he will break the all-time record of tight end touchdowns in his career. DJ Dallas, more like the best running back to wear a Dallas uniform. Of course, I'm talking about Chris Warren. Of course. Alton Robinson. There's nothing left to be said for him except for he is a hybrid of Warren Sapp and Khalil Mack in one player and will absolutely destroy anybody he is up against. Freddie Swain, more like the next Freddie Biletnikoff. Yeah, and with all the swag and talent of somebody like Michael Irvin. Stephon Sullivan, what are they doing putting him in number 87? May as well allow him to wear number 80 because he's the next Stephon Largent. I like it. Yeah. Light the league on fire. Probably the most dominant force ever drafted by the Seahawks.
All right, Adam, we've got to get on to do better and better at life.
All right. Yeah, that probably makes some sense. Got to keep this dog catfish show on the tracks, you know?
We got to tighten this up. My do better this week is thanks to Jeffrey, one of our members of the flock at gettingtheflock.com. And my do better this week is for Gil Brandt. And he came up with a list here recently of the best quarterback and wide receiver pairings. And so you start to think of, guys who are known for throwing to another top receiver on the team. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Rams can't be on here because Jared Goff to Brandon Cooks. Now Brandon Cooks is in Houston. So, that top 10 pairing in the league would be, obviously off the list, right?
Top 10, huh?
Based on this list, I would not be surprised if Gil Brandt had Jared Goff on here, because you know what quarterback is missing from Gil Brandt's list? Russell catfishing Wilson. Out of all the top 10 quarterback receiver tandems, Russell Wilson to Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf, I don't care which, it isn't even on the list. Is Russell Wilson a quarterback in the NFL?
Yes.
Is he a top quarterback in the NFL?
Yes.
Yes, he should make the list. But instead, down at number 10, you have a wide receiver to quarterback connection that didn't even exist last year. Phillip Rivers to T.Y. Hilton at number 10.
Wow. Okay.
We're projecting.
So the only thing I could figure when you said that he didn't make the list was that the consideration that is being made is that the receiver part of the duo is much better than Tyler Lockett, right? Like that has to be the assumption made here.
It has to be.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're telling me that T.Y. Hilton is so much better than Tyler Lockett, it makes up for the fact that Phillip Rivers is so much worse than Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay.
So number 1 on the list is probably one that, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago would be the number 1. Drew Brees to Michael Thomas. That's the number 1.
Okay.
I mean, it's fine. Michael Thomas is best receiver in football, probably.
He's in the top 3 discussion, right? Like,
yeah, along with Julio Jones. But Matt Ryan to Julio Jones is number 2.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Number 3 is an NFC West quarterback, Kyler Murray throwing to DeAndre Hopkins.
So something, again, that didn't even exist last year.
Didn't even exist last year.
Okay.
I mean, at least you can go down this list and say, well, except for Kyler Murray, Drew Brees, top 10 quarterback. Matt Ryan, I'd put him at the top 10. It's at the bottom of the top 10 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott, top 10 quarterback. Patrick Mahomes at number 5. He's a top 10 quarterback. Tom Brady, him throwing to Mike Evans. Yeah, you put that on your list. Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams. That makes sense. They're both 2 top guys. Ryan Tannehill to A.J. Brown is number 8.
Whoa.
Yes.
Okay, that's egregious.
That is the worst one on this list. That one you look at and you say, even Russell Wilson to DK Metcalf is better than that combo.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing about this and the most bitter pill to swallow is that Russell Wilson to Tyler Lockett is the best deep connection in the game.
Yeah.
Bar none.
Oh, but no, Adam, didn't you see Sims say that Deshaun Watson throws a prettier deep ball?
He can say what he'd like. Sure. So one of the things about Sims when he evaluates quarterbacks that you really have to understand is that he appreciates quarterbacks, even though he says he doesn't, more that gun it than throw a touch.
Yeah. We've been on Sims enough in this show. Let's go back to Gil Brandt. Number 8, Ryan Tannehill to A.J. Brown ahead of Matthew Stafford to Kenny Galladay. What are these guys even doing on the list? Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett deserve to be in this top 10. I don't care where it is. Gil Brandt, do better.
Yeah, that's a lot of disrespect right there. A lot of disrespect. All right, man. My do better has to do with some further disrespect that has been thrown Russell Wilson's way in terms of this whole trade Russell Wilson rumor that is absolutely ridiculous that Chris Sims basically pulled out of his ass, and now that we've all had to endure it. And so then Mike Florio takes it a step further and saying, well, he will be traded later on down there, or there's a very good possibility that he'll be traded down the road here. And people, they latched on to that, including Fansided's writer Ryan Heckman, who apparently is the Chicago Bears writer for that site. And he came out with an amazing article entitled Chicago Bears Rumors. 3 trade packages for Russell Wilson.
Oh.
Yeah,
I want to hear the compensation that we're going to get from the Bears, Adam.
Yeah, okay. So this is the first phrase. A recent report suggests that Russell Wilson will eventually be traded. What would it take for the Chicago Bears to land him? Well,
what would it take?
A bunch of stuff that you don't have. That's what it would take. But I think where you need to start with this is, what did the Bears give up for Khalil Mack?
2 first-rounders. They did get back a second, but it was 2. And I think the
2
first-round picks
and like a
were...
sixth.
It was like a sixth round pick in addition. But the main thing was, it was 2 picks in the first round after pick number. It was the back end of the first round, so no top 10, no top 15 first round picks for Khalil Mack.
Just first round picks, and you get back a second round pick and Khalil Mack, right? That's the crux of the trade. Okay?
Essentially, yeah. There's some other picks in there, but those were the high value picks.
Okay, for a pass rusher, 2 first round picks.
Yeah,
for a pass rusher. Okay. Now let's all agree that pass rusher is a very important position in the NFL. Is it quarterback important, Brandon?
Yeah, and pass rusher is the second highest paid out of the positions.
Well, it's either that or corner, right? Now, second highest. But in relative terms, do you worry more about who your starting quarterback is or who your best pass rusher is?
Oh, yeah. Starting quarterback, number 1.
Like by a magnitude of how much? At least 3 or 4, right?
If they paid quarterbacks to the actual value that they were worth and there wasn't a salary cap that artificially deflated quarterback salaries, it would be a magnitude of probably 3.
Yes. So the baseline would be at least 3 or 4 first round picks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a quarterback's at least twice as valuable as
and they would have to be top 15 picks.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but nobody knows exactly what those are because of records going forward, right? So we just got to say first round picks. You got to let go of top 15 or whatever, right? Okay. So his first suggestion.
You don't think that the Bears are going to get a top 15 pick next year?
Well, who knows, man? Like you're getting in the weeds. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right. So, guys, first round or first suggestion for a trade would be the Bears get Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks would
gross. Do we have to keep going?
Yeah, I know. Seahawks would get a first round pick this year, and a first round pick next year, and a 5th round pick.
And
that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
A first round pick in 2021.
Yep.
And then a first round pick again the following year after Russell Wilson takes him to the Super Bowl. So essentially a second round pick.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And a 5th rounder. So basically the same, if not less than Khalil Mack. Yeah,
that's less than Khalil Mack, but yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense. Sure. Okay.
I was waiting for you to say that Khalil Mack was going to be part of this trade.
No. They're gonna try to trade a pass rusher in these scenarios here in this scenario right here.
Okay.
The Bears get Russell Wilson and a 7th round pick for Robert Quinn, a 1st round pick, and then a 2nd round pick the following year. So now you don't even get 2 first round picks now. You get the luxury of Robert Quinn, a good but not great pass rusher, for Russell Wilson and a 1st round pick, basically.
Wait, what?
So he's saying Robert Quinn, a 1st round pick, and a 2nd for Russell Wilson.
Oh, well, that's better than the first package that he threw out.
Is it?
Well, you get remember in my scenario, Russ takes I guess the 2nd round pick will then be more like a 3rd round pick.
Robert Quinn is a secondary pass rusher. Like, he's not your primary pass rusher, right?
Yeah, but at least you get a player in the deal. The Seahawks aren't good with their 1st round picks anyway. Robert
Quinn, a 1st and a 2nd is a joke. That would need to be like 3 first rounders, Robert Quinn, and then throw in the 2nd.
I would totally trade Geno Smith for that package that you just announced.
Yeah, we're talking about Russell Wilson.
I thought you just said a Seahawks quarterback.
No. Russell Wilson. All right, third potential, and I bet you this will be your favorite. Bears get Russell Wilson and a 6th round pick from the Seahawks, and the Seahawks receive a 1st rounder this year, a 1st rounder next year, so the same 2 first round picks, and the prize that is Nick Foles.
Yeah.
Woo! Sign me up.
Bears fans already ready to dump Nick Foles.
Well, the idea that they think that Nick Foles is more valuable than Robert Quinn, number one. Right? Because the previous deal was Robert Quinn, 2 first-rounders and a second. You don't get the second in this deal. You get the joy of having Nick Foles as your quarterback.
Yeah. You know what I would want my general manager to do for this Bears fan is actually sign Cam Newton rather than trade for Nick Foles.
No kidding. That was the place that Cam should have gone, but whatever. But point being, all of these packages are basically equivalent to what was given up for Khalil Mack, a non-quarterback, and you're talking about either the best or second best quarterback in the league, depending on how you value the quarterback position.
And the second most untradeable player in the NFL.
In all the NFL. And he's worth what Khalil Mack is worth.
Yeah.
Number one, he's not getting traded at all. You picked up on a stupid rumor that was never going to happen, and then you throw out these dog catfish trade scenarios. Dude from Fansided, do better.
Wow.
They're insulting. These trade scenarios are insulting.
That was the worst trade scenario I think I've ever heard.
If it's not 4 first-rounders, don't even pick up the phone.
And, okay, maybe like when Russell Wilson's 42. Like, that might be an okay trade package.
There you go. Not smack dab in the middle of his prime.
Where no quarterback in his prime has ever been traded who's worth anything.
Not really, no.
No, it's never happened.
Not really, no.
I think the one guy that I go back to is the guy that Russell Wilson gets compared to a lot. Tarkenton, yeah. He got traded from the Giants. But he wasn't really that good with the Giants.
No, not his fault either. Because he went back to the Vikings and was good.
Yeah. Let's move on to Better at Life.
All right, man. Oh, you want to go?
I want to go.
All right, you go. It's locked and loaded. Do it.
My Better at Life this week is for a Browns fan. A Browns fan who has a YouTube channel and goes by the name Sir Yacht. And I came across Sir Yacht the other night, and I probably ended up spending way more time watching his videos than I actually should have. Because he has a lot of sports takes.
Okay.
But apparently, just this last week or so, some 49ers fan got under his skin by saying that Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Baker Mayfield, which, that's not that big of a stretch, but he was also...
I'd say 6 of one, half a dozen of the other right now.
So the 49ers fan listed the 5 quarterbacks that Jimmy G is better than. And it was a list that included Dak, Goff, Cousins, Wentz, and Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
Really, for a 49ers fan to have to go that deep on the quarterback depth chart to find guys that he's confident that Jimmy G is better than, and he really in that group is probably 2 of 5.
I was gonna say, he's wrong on a good number of those, but that's okay. Yeah,
I would take Dak and Wentz easily over Jimmy G, and the rest are probably about the same.
Yeah, I think Cousins to Garoppolo is a lateral move.
I would definitely rather have Jimmy G over Goff.
I don't know. I think that's a lateral move to me.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield, kind of a lateral move.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in his career.
So, Sir Yacht, he decides to go on a takedown rant of Jimmy G in response to this random 49ers fan.
Well, that shouldn't be hard.
This 49ers fan really loves Jimmy Garoppolo. He said that Jimmy G is better than all these quarterbacks he listed that I don't really give a shit about. But then he said that Jimmy G is better than Baker Mayfield. First, I don't get 49ers fans' infatuation with great value Kirk Cousins. Secondly, he's the reason you guys lost the Super Bowl last season. You would think Jimmy G's birthday was in the second half of the Super Bowl the way he didn't show up to work. Jimmy G in the Super Bowl missed more throws than anybody. The only throws Jimmy G made in the second half was when he threw the game. A damn California Redwood could do what Jimmy G does and just hand the ball off to all the running backs. And last time I checked, trees don't have hands. Garoppolo is the worst quarterback in the NFC West, and that division has Jared Goff and Chance the Rapper Jr. If they would have had 25 other starting NFL quarterbacks in, they probably would have won. They might have won if Tim Tebow was the quarterback. The 49ers have an amazing offense with a great running attack, the best defense in the NFL, but they have an overrated quarterback that you guys love because he's handsome and backed up Tom Brady. I would take Baker Mayfield's left arm before having discount Joe Flacco on the Browns. Also, what did you mean by out bet better. Did you mean you guys are better without Jimmy Garoppolo?
The strongest part is referring to Kyler Murray as Chance the Rapper Jr.
That was funny. That made me laugh for sure. But unfortunately, he's wrong in the sense that discount Joe Flacco is Jimmy Garoppolo, because as I've been saying for years, that's Jared Goff. You can't give that to Garoppolo. He's more like Garoppolo is more like slightly healthier Sam Bradford.
And maybe I'm just partial to liking guys who go on rants because I like Sir Yacht, and he is my better at life than Skip Bayless this week.
Okay, that was kind of fun. And, I don't know that I would take Baker Mayfield's left arm over Garoppolo.
I thought it was over Joe Flacco.
No. He would take Baker Mayfield's left arm over discount Joe Flacco. Who is Jimmy Garoppolo.
You were listening to this way more closely than I was, I think.
Yeah, to get it right and stuff. But it's hilarious. It's one of those things that you got to look at teams and be like, okay, does the team make quarterback make the team? So there's a lot to kind of weigh into that. The funniest part was he missed more throws than anybody in the Super Bowl. Well, there was only 2 dudes throwing the ball in the Super Bowl. So, yes, all he had to do was miss more throws than the Mahomes, and you would be the guy who missed more throws than anybody, which would be accurate. He melted down in the Super Bowl. He's not a guy you can trust right now. And who do you take in that middle tier quarterbacks, one over the other? I mean, take your pick. They're all lateral moves. Cousins, Garoppolo. I kind of throw Dak in there as well.
Dak has fourth quarter ability. That's what elevates him out of that tier to me.
Slightly. He's closer to that tier than the great tier. I would say that. I wouldn't pay him the big money. I wouldn't pay him the big money. So yeah, let him argue over that tier because it's not the one we have to concern ourselves with.
We can just watch all the people, all the fans of teams in that tier bicker at each other, and we can kind of entertain ourselves that way.
Right. Yeah. Having the best. So that's fun.
I mean, essentially for us, it's what now the next guy to try and take down is Patrick Mahomes.
And even that, it's pick your flavor of quarterback, right?
Yeah.
The Mahomes or Russ. I mean, my dad, big Chiefs fan. He's like, Russ basically to him was the prototype for Mahomes. He plays just like Russ in his mind. I think they play a little different, but yeah, I mean, it's just different surroundings is all.
I'm just saying. I think that for a lot of people, the Mahomes is cut and dry as number one right now, and
he's the most current champion, so I can understand where that comes from. It's a reasonable argument. As a Seahawks
reigning
fan
MVP.
and a Russell Wilson guy, he's not the reigning MVP. Lamar Jackson is, but as a giant Russell Wilson
he was
fan,
the MVP before Lamar Jackson.
Right there, you go. Mahomes is the only guy that I would entertain in the argument as better than Russell Wilson.
Okay.
And I would still pick Russ, but I'd at least entertain him.
Did you know that Russell Wilson has never gotten an MVP vote, Adam? Have you heard that?
It's been brought to my attention. Yeah.
I think it's the new Jimmy Graham played basketball.
What? No, Jimmy played basketball?
I know. It's a little known fact.
Man, there's a lot of little known facts about tight ends, and my better at life than Skip Bayless this week, he focuses a little bit on the tight ends. Maybe, and especially one who is my favorite whipping boy on the Seahawks. And some of it's tongue in cheek for me. Some of it is I generally don't like some of the broy things that this tight end subscribes to. And fortunately, I have somebody on my side in this argument. Let it rip, Brandon.
I think we got a good tight end group. Luke Wilson. The only thing I want to tell you is you got to tamp that catfish down, okay? That's not how I handle myself, all right? I don't know what you do in the offseason up there in Canada, but, cut your catfish hair and let's play some football, all right?
I love this. My man Will Ferrell coming out, taking down Luke Wilson a little bit, pretending to be Greg Olson, which I think – do you remember back when Obama gave one of those press correspondence dinner speeches – and he had either Key or Peele. I never was a fan of their show, so I always forget which one's which. I think it's Key.
It was Key.
Was the guy that was like his anger management speaker or something along those lines. So Obama would say something, coolly like he does, in cool tones, just ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. And then Key would like, brah! like, let it all out.
Right.
I think Will Ferrell was doing the same thing for Greg Olsen. Like, we heard Greg Olsen on that group tight end chat a few weeks ago. Will Ferrell picked up the Zoom chat and basically was that guy for Greg Olsen. And it was really fun to hear. I appreciate Will Ferrell. And for him to have that much interest in the Seahawks, better at life than Skip Bayless.
Well, Adam, it was, we put in the work this week for the show.
Yeah, well, I skipped a week, so.
We get to double up on time this week.
Yeah. If you're a listener, just break this up into 2 listening sessions for you.
There you
Brandon's
go.
going to put it out as one show because that's less work for him. I don't want to hear any complaints about it being long.
Bloomquist is going to complain about it being long.
Well, he can listen to it on crackhead speed if that's what he'd like to do.
And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
go Hawks.
Go Hawks. And Bloomy might be a crackhead.